My name is Evelyn Brooks, and I'm 54 years old. I build things that are supposed to last. I own a small business that designs and builds custom furniture. Real wood, real weight, real joinery. My days are sawdust, hand tools, and the quiet satisfaction of running my fingers along a smooth edge I've sanded myself. I like things I can knock on and hear an honest sound. For a long time, I thought my relationship was like that too. Solid, honest, built to last. I'd been with my boyfriend, Shane, for 3 years. He's 41, a photographer. Artistic, charming, very good at finding the light on other people's faces, and very, very online. I'm not. My idea of digital presence has always been my business website that my nephew set up for me 5 years ago and occasionally remembers to update. About a year ago, Shane moved into my house. My mortgage, paid off 10 years ago with long weekends, canceled vacations, and more than one night of falling asleep at the kitchen table over invoices. He moved into something I had already finished building. At first, it was easy, comfortable. He filled the rooms with plants and soft blankets and stacks of photography magazines. I liked coming in from the workshop to the smell of something simmering on the stove, music playing, Shane humming along as he edited photos at the kitchen table. Or I thought I did. The shift was small at first, a draft of cold air under a tightly shut door. Lately, everything seemed to orbit around one person on his phone. Kayla, he'd say, like I should already know. She's huge in the conscious lifestyle space. One of those spiritual lifestyle influencers. You know the type. Long bronze limbs on a beach at sunrise, flowing dress whipping dramatically in the wind, holding a crystal the size of a small watermelon over her heart. Captions about manifesting your truth and vibrating higher, and if this finds you, it's not an accident. Shane's feed was full of her, not just likes, comments. Always speaking my language, he'd write, "This is the energy I need in my life." Literally vibrating higher just watching this. I'd be on the couch, reading, pretending not to see the words glowing on his screen. It wasn't that I thought he was going to run away to join some cult on a beach. It just felt disloyal. Like he had a little altar in his hand, and he was worshiping at it every night while sitting next to me. 2 weeks ago, we were in bed. The room was dark, except for the flicker of his phone screen painting thin, blue rectangles across the ceiling. I could hear his thumb tapping and pausing, that stupid little scroll rhythm becoming a metronome for my heartbeat. I swallowed and tried to keep my voice light. "Shane," I said, "this Kayla woman, the comments you leave, they feel like a bit much." He didn't look up. He murmured, thumb still moving. "The stuff you write on her posts," I tried again, "about how she's your inspiration, your energy, it feels disrespectful to me, to us." That got his attention. The phone lowered an inch, just an inch. "Ev, seriously?" He actually scoffed. "It's Instagram, it's not real life. I'm networking. She's an influencer in my space. It's just pixels on a screen." "Pixels that cost a lot of time," I said quietly. "You're being insecure," he said, and the word landed like a slap. "And kind of controlling, honestly. You can't police who I follow or what I comment. You know how this industry works." Insecure, controlling. 2 words engineered to make any woman of a certain age doubt everything she's feeling. My face went hot. Suddenly, I could see myself the way he must see me in that moment. Older, not fluent in the language of algorithms, jealous of a girl on a beach with a ring light. "You're right," I heard myself say. "I'm sorry. It felt strange." He sighed like he was the one being patient. "It's fine. Just trust me, okay? It's content, that's all." That word lodged somewhere under my ribs. Content. My life, my home, my relationship, reduced to a category in some marketing deck. The conversation ended. The feeling didn't. A few days later, I sat in my office with a stack of receipts, a pot of coffee, and my laptop open to my AMX business account. Quarterly taxes. Not romantic, but necessary. When Shane moved in, I'd added him to my business AMX as a supplementary card holder. It was a practical decision. He did photos for my website, sometimes bought props or printed materials when I couldn't get away from the shop. We made an agreement. Household groceries? Fine. Supplies for the house? Fine. Anything related to photographing my work? Fine. Anything else? Ask. I trusted him. I was matching receipts to line items when I saw it. Awakened Goddess Coaching, LLC, 5,000. My brain filed it away as a one-off mislabel at first. Some vendor with a weird name. I scrolled. Celestial Alignment Mastermind, $12,000. Kayla's Inner Circle Monthly, $1,500. Another Awakened Goddess charge for $3,000. The numbers sat on the screen, black text on white, utterly calm, while my heart started pounding so hard I could feel it in my teeth. I added them up automatically, the way I add up board feet of walnut. 5,000, 12,000, 500, 3,000, $21,500. My hands began to shake, not with rage, not yet, but with a cold, electric clarity that sliced straight through the fog I'd been living in. It wasn't just likes. It wasn't just pixels. Shane had been siphoning money out of my business to pay for his spiritual crush's coaching packages. My sweat and sawdust and late-night invoice runs had been converted into beachfront vibrations and inner circle access for a woman who didn't know I existed. I stared at the screen, then at the wall across from my desk where I'd hung Shane's photographs. Black and white shots of me in my workshop. My hands on a chisel, my back bent over a workbench, light streaming across my hair like I was some kind of artisan poster girl. His portfolio, he called it. Insecure, controlling, content. You're right, I whispered. Except I wasn't talking to him anymore. I didn't storm into the living room. I didn't throw the laptop on the coffee table and demand explanations. The anger moved through me, hot, then burned off, leaving something harder underneath. I opened my mouth and said the two most undramatic words in the English language. Of course. Of course he'd called me insecure while stealing from me. Of course he'd told me to trust him while using my business account like an ATM. Of course the altar in his hand cost more than he was ever going to admit. I picked up my phone and dialed the number on the back of my Amex card. Yes, I said when the representative answered. My voice sounded calm, almost bored. I need to report a card as compromised. The supplementary card ending in 0038. Yes, that's correct. The card holder is Shane Carter. Please cancel it immediately. No, I do not want a replacement sent. When that was done, I hung up and dialed another familiar number. My lawyer has a voice like smooth granite. Solid, unmovable. We need to talk about my options, I told him. Hypothetically, if a long-term guest in my house is using my business account without permission. He didn't ask many questions. Lawyers rarely do at first. He just asked for details, and I gave them to him. When I hung up, the house felt different. Same furniture, same walls, same faint hum of the refrigerator. But the illusion that we were building a life together was gone. What we'd been doing was living in my life, with him quietly drilling holes in the foundation. I sat there for a long moment, staring at the framed photos of myself he'd taken. Then I did something I never imagined I'd bother doing. I created an Instagram account. Not Brooks Custom Furniture, not the neat little business profile my nephew had set up, a personal account. Evelyn Works. The username felt strange and powerful at the same time. My phone was full of a folder Shane had curated. Ev, best shots. He'd called it his portfolio. Angles of me at the workbench, grain catching the light, sawdust on my shirt, laugh lines on my face. I scrolled until one stopped me. Me, focused on a slab of walnut. Sunlight from the shop window cutting across my profile. It was a damn good photo. No point lying. I uploaded it. Caption, building things that last. Time to get back to what's real. #woodworking, #craftswoman, #authentic. I didn't tag him. Why would I? It was my face, my hands, my workshop, my life. From the living room, I could hear him laughing at something on his phone. Probably Kayla talking about aligning chakras with tax season. I posted a second photo. This one was older, me standing at a job site next to Julian, an interior designer I've worked with for 15 years. He's 52, a widower, meticulous as a surgeon with paint chips. In the photo, we're both squinting at a set of plans, matching wood tones to wall colors. Caption, planning the next big project with one of the best in the business. Nothing beats working with a real professional who respects the craft. #design, #collaboration, #new beginnings. I set the phone down on my desk. I felt not triumphant, not yet. More like when you clamp two pieces of wood together with glue between them. No one else can see it, but you know a new shape is already forming. Out in the living room, Shane hadn't noticed the pipeline he'd been drinking from had just been shut off. He hadn't noticed I'd stopped apologizing in my head and started planning in earnest. He hadn't noticed that the woman lying next to him in bed, the one he'd called insecure and controlling, had just opened a door he didn't even know existed. I stood, brushed a curl of sawdust off my jeans, and went back into the workshop. The sander roared to life under my hands, loud and honest, drowning out the faint echo of his laugh from the other room. The next few days were strangely quiet. Not between us. Shane still filled the house with his presence, his playlists, the clink of his coffee mug on the counter, but inside my head, something had gone still. Like a pond after a storm, surface calm, but you know the bottom has shifted. My new Instagram account, on the other hand, was not quiet. At first, it was just a couple of old clients who somehow found me. Then, one of Julian's assistants shared my workshop picture to her stories. Then a former architect I'd done a dining table for 3 years ago commented, "About time you got online, Evelyn. Beautiful work." Julian commented on the photo of us at the job site. "Finally, the world gets to see who really makes these projects happen. Can't wait to show your next piece." A slow drip of likes and follows started. Not viral, just steady. Real people whose names I recognized. Contractors, designers, a woman who owned a little bakery where I'd built the display shelves, people who knew I existed outside of an algorithm. From the couch, I could see Shane's thumbs flying over his own screen, the blue light flickering across his face at night. Kayla had just announced some quantum leap seminar in Tulum. He played the announcement video for me once, laughing at some joke she made about abundance. "She's brilliant," he said. "You don't get it, Ev. This is the future of business." I smiled without showing my teeth and went back to my book. He hadn't mentioned the AMX card. He hadn't noticed that his future of business funding had been cut off. Not yet. The explosion came on a Friday night. I was in my office, reading. Not a business book, just a novel I'd picked up from the library. The house was dim and peaceful. The only sounds were the occasional creak of old floorboards and the distant hum of traffic outside. Then I heard it. Heavy footsteps, fast, coming down the hall. My door flew open so hard it hit the stopper with a crack. Shane stood there, face blotchy and pale, eyes too wide. He was holding his phone like it had personally insulted him. "Evelyn," he snapped, voice pitched high. "My card was declined." I looked up over the rim of my glasses. "Good evening to you too," I said. "I'm serious," he barked. "I was trying to book Kayla's Quantum Leap Intensive. She offered me a loyalty rate, it's 50% off, and they declined the payment. Twice. It was humiliating. I had to back out of the checkout screen. You need to call AMX. They flagged it wrong or something." I took my glasses off, folded them carefully, and put them on the arm of my chair. He was breathing like he'd run up a hill, all panicked adrenaline and wounded pride. "There's no fraud to report," I said calmly. "I canceled that card." His mouth opened and closed soundlessly for a second. "You what?" he said finally. "You canceled it? Why would you do that? Those are business expenses. I have branding costs, content costs, my mental health coaching." "Are we calling it business expenses?" I cut in softly. "The Awakened Goddess coaching package? The Celestial Alignment Mastermind? The Inner Circle with Kayla? Because AMX calls those charges something else." His skin seemed to drain of color all at once. He looked like someone had pulled the plug on a lamp inside him. "You looked at my statement?" he demanded. "You went through my charges?" "It's my business account," I reminded him. "I'm required by law to go through the charges, and in case you've forgotten, we had an agreement." I held up a hand, ticking off on my fingers. Groceries, house supplies, anything for photographing my work. That's it. He swallowed hard. A tiny muscle jumped in his jaw. "It was an investment," he said. "In my brand, in our future. You don't understand. This is how—" "It was $21,500, I said, enunciating each word like I was tapping a nail into wood. "Of my company's money. Paid to a woman on a beach who sends you inspirational voice notes and pre-recorded meditations." His eyes flashed. "You're twisting this. You always twist things. God, Evelyn, you're so paranoid. You're making this into something ugly when it's about growth and—" "Growth," I repeated. "The kind that requires my AMX number and my signature on the account." He started pacing, hands flying. "This is why I didn't tell you," he said. "You're so controlling. You don't support my dreams. You want me stuck taking cheap headshots forever while you sit there in your workshop acting like some martyr. I needed this. For my business. For my mental health. Kayla is helping me unlock my potential, and you just—" "You stole from me," I said. The room went dead quiet. "I didn't steal—" "You used my business account without my permission," I continued, not raising my voice. "You spent more than some people's yearly salary on access to a woman who sends generic spiritual advice to thousands of people at once, and you didn't have the decency to tell me. You called me insecure when I questioned your behavior while you were siphoning money out of my company. That's not an investment or a misunderstanding. That's theft, Shane. He stopped at pacing and stared at me like I'd slapped him. You're being dramatic, he said finally, and vindictive. You went behind my back and canceled my card instead of talking to me. Do you know how abusive that is? Financial control like that is a form of abuse, actually. You're acting like some bitter, controlling old... Careful, I said quietly. The word hung between us like a saw blade. I stood up. I didn't go behind your back, I said. I went to my lawyer first. His eyebrows shot up. Your what? My lawyer, I repeated. We discussed my options. Legally. He laughed, but there was no humor in it, just a sharp, brittle sound. Oh my God, you're insane. You're really going to try to sue me over some coaching packages? After everything I've done for this house, for us? You mean the plants you brought in and the playlists? I tilted my head. Shane, you're not on the mortgage. You're not on the deed. You don't pay the property taxes. You don't pay the insurance. You are a guest here. His mouth opened, closed. A guest, I repeated, and your stay is over. For a moment, he looked like he genuinely didn't understand the words. What do you mean, over? I'm giving you 30 days to move your things out, I said. That's generous. My lawyer advised me I don't actually owe you that much time, but I'm not a monster. You can't do that, he said, voice breaking. You can't just kick me out. I have rights. You have the right to pack your things, I said, and the right to find your own lawyer who can speak to mine. I suggest you use both. He just stared at me, his face twisted, moving through confusion, disbelief, and finally to the emotion he knows best, anger. You're ruining my life, he said. All because you can't handle that I have a connection with someone who gets me. You're jealous. This is all about your insecurity. You're punishing me because you don't understand what I'm trying to build. I thought about all the nights I'd sat on the couch while he worshipped at the altar of his phone. All the times I'd been told I was controlling for asking simple questions. Shane, I said softly, I understand exactly what you're trying to build. I'm just choosing not to let you build it on top of me. He made a strangled sound, turned on his heel, and stormed out of the room. A second later, I heard drawers slamming in the living room. The frantic tapping of his thumbs started up again, faster than ever. I could imagine it. The text to his friends, the sudden flood of messages to Tara and Zoe and whoever else, casting himself as the victim of the cruel older woman who kicked him out over Instagram. Let him talk, I thought. Let him tell his version. I went back to my desk, picked up my phone, and opened Instagram. There was another photo in Shane's Ev Best Shots folder that I'd always secretly liked. Me in a navy suit at a charity gala we'd gone to last year, hair swept up, a rare swipe of lipstick, looking straight at the camera. He'd played with the shadows until I looked like some kind of moody CEO in a magazine spread. I posted it. Caption: Sometimes you have to clear out what's old and broken to make room for what's new and strong. Excited for what's ahead. Moving on honesty. #integrity. I set the phone down and picked up my book again. It didn't take long. From the living room came a sound I'd never heard from him before. Not a practiced sigh or a performative laugh. A raw, strangled scream. You have got to be kidding me, he shouted. I leaned back in my chair and, for the first time in days, smiled. When I picked up my phone again, the notifications were rolling in. Julian, that's the spirit, Evelyn. Onwards and upwards. Former client. You look incredible. Proud of you for putting yourself first. And then, the one that made me pause. Tara, one of Shane's closest friends, had commented, Damn, Evelyn, looking sharp. I think you just upgraded. Call me, we should talk. I stared at the words for a long moment. Upgraded. Somewhere in the next room, Shane was scrolling frantically, watching his own friends cheer me on under a photo he'd taken. He'd wanted content. He'd created it. He just didn't realize I was the one telling the story now. The next morning, the house was still. Shane hadn't spoken a word to me since his outburst. He'd spent most of the night in the guest room with the door closed, probably glued to his phone, typing his version of events into a dozen different chats. By sunrise, I heard the faint rumble of a suitcase zipper. He was moving something, not out, just around, a small act of defiance. When he came into the kitchen, his eyes were bloodshot but cold. He didn't say good morning, just grabbed the coffee pot, poured himself a cup, and stood across from me. You really think people believe that post? He said. I looked up from my eggs. Which one? The one you used my photo for, he snapped. Everyone's talking about it. You're making yourself look pathetic, Evelyn. You're too old for social media revenge. I smiled faintly. Then don't look. He set his cup down too hard. You think this makes you the good guy? You've embarrassed me publicly. I haven't said a word about you, I said evenly. Not once. If people think the shoe fits, that's not my problem. He stared at me for a long beat, jaw tight, then stormed off again. I didn't chase him, because that's what people like Shane count on. Being chased, being soothed. They depend on you to pick up the pieces after they've broken something, even when the thing they shattered was trust. The following week crawled by in a fog of petty little battles. He'd slam cabinet doors, leave wet towels on the counter, blast his Focus playlists at midnight, and then, just as quickly, he'd switch to charm, bring me coffee, make jokes, ask if I wanted to watch a show together. I could see him trying to find an angle, a way back into control. I didn't bite. Instead, I focused on work, on my clients, on the feel of wood under my palms. And every night, I'd post something small, subtle. A photo of the workshop at sunset. Caption, honest work, honest light. A shot of a finished walnut desk, built to outlast the trend. Each post drew quiet, steady engagement. Not from strangers chasing attention, but from people who respected the craft. Shane must have seen it. His own feed was suddenly desperate. Motivational quotes, blurry selfies, attempts at brand partnerships that looked like thinly veiled pleas for relevance. By Thursday, he'd stopped pretending to sleep in the same room. Friday night, the inevitable crash came. He burst into my office again, but this time there was no rage, just panic. "Evelyn," he said, voice shaking, "I need the AMX card reactivated. I talked to Kayla's assistant. She says if I can make the final payment this weekend, she'll keep me in the mastermind group. If I miss it, I lose my place. I can't lose this." I didn't look up from the invoice I was typing. "You already lost it, Shane." He froze. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means the card's not coming back," I said. "And neither am I." He blinked, trying to process the words. "You're really doing this," he whispered. "You're throwing away everything we've built because of a few charges?" I finally looked at him. "What we built?" I said. "Shane, I built this house. I built this business. I built a life you were standing in, taking photos of. You didn't build anything. You posed." He swallowed, the muscles in his throat working. "You're going to regret this," he muttered. I stood, slow and calm, and met his eyes. I already did, for the last 3 years. He left again, this time slamming the door so hard a frame rattled off the wall. 2 days later, a message arrived from my lawyer confirming the letter had been drafted. It was short, clean, and sharp. Notice of termination of residency and preliminary notice of unauthorized use of business funds. He'd have 30 days to vacate the property. I printed a copy, slid it into an envelope, and left it on the kitchen counter under his favorite mug. He didn't speak to me all day. That evening, I watched him pace on the porch, phone to his ear, voice low and furious. I didn't care who he was talking to. I only cared that every syllable sounded like a wall cracking. When I walked past the window, I caught a glimpse of his face. Frustration, disbelief, and something else creeping in around the edges. Fear. The next week was chaos in slow motion. He started sleeping late, barely eating, sulking like a teenager grounded from the internet. He accused me of sabotaging his reputation, of turning people against him online. The irony was almost poetic. The same friends who used to comment on his every post were now liking mine, writing things like, "So proud of you, Ev," and "About time you showed your work off." And then, one morning, I saw something that made me laugh out loud for the first time in weeks. Shane had posted a quote card on his Instagram story, a black background, white font. "When someone tries to control you, cut them off. Protect your vibration." Under it, a broken heart emoji. He'd written, "Real ones know." Within an hour, the only reply was from Tara, the same friend who'd commented on my photo. Protect it from what? Accountability? I didn't screenshot it, but I didn't need to. The comment stayed up for 20 minutes before he deleted the story entirely. That was when I knew the tide had turned. Not just online, inside him. He'd lost control of the story. I could see it in how he moved through the house now. Quiet, uncertain. Sometimes he'd open his mouth like he wanted to argue, but then think better of it. By the second week, he started asking logistical questions. "Do you want me to leave the spare key? Can I use the garage for storage until I get a truck?" Every sentence was a tiny surrender. When the final Friday came, I gave him his time slot, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. "I'll be here," I told him. "You can bring whoever you need to help you move, but this is it. After today, the locks change." He didn't argue, just nodded, eyes hollow. And for a moment, just one, I felt something like pity. Then I remembered the $21,000 he'd stolen and the months he'd called me controlling while hiding the proof. Pity is a luxury. By noon, I heard a knock on the door. Shane stood there with two women behind him, Tara and Zoe, both avoiding my eyes. He smiled like this was some kind of social call. "We're here to help," he said, "and to make sure everything stays civil." Zoe crossed her arms. "Yeah, just so you don't try anything." I leaned against the doorframe and looked at the three of them. "Try anything?" I said evenly. "You mean like making sure he doesn't take things that aren't his?" No one answered. "Good," I said. "Then we're on the same page." He brushed past me without another word. Boxes, footsteps, closet doors opening and closing, the sound of tape being ripped off the roll. For hours, I stood in the hallway, arms folded, listening to the rhythm of a relationship being packed into cardboard. I told myself I didn't care what he took, as long as it wasn't mine. But when I heard the soft creak of my office door opening, something in me went still. "That room's off limits," I called out. No answer. I walked down the hall, and there he was, holding a box, the look of guilt flickering just long enough to give him away. And that's when I noticed it, the empty space on my mantel. A small gap where a carved burlwood sculpture used to sit. A piece I'd commissioned years ago. Beautiful. Priceless. Gone. "Shane," I said slowly, "where's the sculpture?" He blinked, feigning confusion. "What sculpture?" "The one that was right there," I said, pointing. "The one you said you liked." He shifted the box in his arms. "It's a gift. You gave it to me." "I never gave you that," I said, stepping closer. "Open the box." He took a step back. "Evelyn, don't start. It's just my stuff." "Tara," I said, turning to her, "you might want to see this too." She frowned. "What's going on?" "Open the box, Shane," I said again, my voice steel now, "or I call the police." He hesitated, just long enough to confirm what I already knew. Then, with a sharp theatrical sigh, he tore the tape open and yanked out a sweater. Wrapped inside it was the sculpture. The room went so quiet I could hear the sound of Tara's breath catch. "Seriously?" Zoe muttered. Shane's face twisted. "It was a gift. She's just trying to humiliate me because I'm leaving." I didn't even raise my voice. $21,500, I said. "And now a $7,000 sculpture. You're not a victim, Shane. You're a thief." Zoe looked from me to him, eyes wide. Tara's lips parted like she wanted to say something, but no words came. Finally, Tara spoke. "Shane, did you really take her money?" He turned on her instantly. "You don't understand. She's twisting this. She's making me out to be—" Tara held up a hand. "You took the sculpture." He froze. She shook her head, grabbed her purse, and walked out the front door without another word. Zoe lingered, gave me a small, almost apologetic nod, and followed. Shane stood alone in the hall, surrounded by half-packed boxes and the wreckage of his pride. He looked at me, eyes dull. Are you going to help me carry these?" "No," I said simply. "You have 3 hours left. I suggest you start lifting." Then I turned and walked back into my workshop, closing the door behind me. For the next few hours I worked, not because I needed to, but because I wanted the sound of the sander to drown out the memory of him moving through my home. When I finally came back upstairs, the house was silent. Empty. He was gone. The mantel looked right again, the sculpture back in its place. I pulled out my phone and posted one last photo that day. Just my hands, rough and scarred, holding a block of wood. Caption: "House is clean. Time to build something new." Within minutes, the comments came in. Julian: "Happy to hear it, Evelyn." Tara: "I'm so sorry. He's not who I thought he was, Simaya." Zoe: "If you ever need a witness for anything, you've got one." I set the phone down and exhaled, deep and slow. He hadn't just lost a home. He'd lost the audience that kept him alive. 3 months. That's how long it's been since Shane walked out of my house with his last box and his last excuse. In that time, silence has become my favorite sound. It used to feel heavy, like loneliness pressing against the walls. Now it feels clean, like oxygen. The first thing I did after he left was change the locks. The second was hire a professional cleaning crew. They spent an entire day scrubbing, vacuuming, and washing every corner of the house. When they left, the place didn't just look different. It felt like an exorcism. For the first time in years, I could breathe. My lawyer handled the rest. Under his direction, we sent a formal demand letter to Shane. It was factual, not emotional, exactly the way I wanted it. It listed each transaction. Awakened Goddess Coaching, LLC, $5,000. Celestial Alignment Mastermind, $12,000. Kayla's Inner Circle, $1,500. Additional charge, $3,000. Total $21,000. Attached were screenshots of his messages to Kayla and the AMX statement highlighting the unauthorized expenses. The letter gave him a choice: sign a promissory note agreeing to repay the full amount in installments, or face a civil lawsuit for fraud and conversion. The same letter went to Kayla's company, Awakened Goddess Coaching LLC, notifying them that they'd accepted funds obtained through misappropriation of business property and could be named as a co-defendant. My lawyer Miles called it a strategic shockwave. He was right. Within 48 hours, we received a wire transfer for $10,000 labeled refund for a dissatisfied client. Attached was a polite note from Awakened Goddess LLC stating that Mr. Shane Carter is no longer a member of our inner circle. In plain English, Kayla had cut him loose. Apparently, gurus don't like being subpoenaed. Shane didn't fight the promissory note. He signed it, trembling, humiliated, beaten down. He's supposed to pay the remaining $11,500 in monthly installments. I'm not holding my breath. The last I heard, he's renting a tiny apartment above a garage in a forgotten part of town. A friend of a friend mentioned he's working part-time for a discount real estate firm, taking listing photos of beige houses with peeling paint. Kayla's inner circle replaced him within a week. His social media? A digital ghost town. No posts, no stories, no followers engaging. His last photo, a blurry selfie captioned, "New beginnings, trust the process." Got 3 likes. One was from a bot. Even his old allies, Tara and Zoe, have blocked him. Funny thing, they've both reached out to me instead. Tara sent me a long message, apologizing for how she'd believed his story. Zoe asked if I'd consider building a coffee table for her sister's new apartment. I said yes, because unlike Shane, they'd owned their mistakes. A month ago, I got a text from a new number. No name, but I knew the cadence before I even opened it. "Evelyn, it's me. I miss you. I made a mistake." Kayla was nothing. "Can we talk?" I stared at it for a long time. Then I took a screenshot, forwarded it to Miles, and blocked the number. It didn't make me feel triumphant. It made me feel done. My work has never been better. After everything happened, my Instagram account, Evelyn Works, started drawing attention from real clients, architects, designers, even a few publications. People liked the honesty, the lack of filters, the visible sawdust. I landed 2 major commissions just from the photos I'd posted, photos Shane had once taken to build his own portfolio. There's a kind of poetic justice in that. He turned me into content, and I turned his content into income. And then there's Julian. We've known each other for years, always professional. He's thoughtful, gentle, and meticulous. The kind of man who measures twice, cuts once, and never says a word he doesn't mean. Since the breakup, we've been having dinner together most Fridays. Nothing romantic, at least not yet. Just 2 people who understand loss. Him, a widower. Me, someone who finally learned what emotional bankruptcy looks like. We talk about wood, design, color palettes, and grief. Sometimes we talk about life after endings. He has a way of listening that makes silence feel full instead of empty. Last week, I posted a photo. 2 glasses of red wine on my workshop table beside a rolled-up set of blueprints. Caption, "Planning the good things to come. Collaboration. New beginnings. Real." Julian commented with a single smiling emoji. Simple. Warm. Exactly right. When I think about Shane now, it's like remembering a fever dream. Hot, dizzying, and unreal. He wanted followers, not love. Validation, not partnership. He wanted to manifest abundance by spending other people's money. And now he's exactly where he was always heading. Alone, broke, and scrolling through an empty feed full of ghosts. He used to say, "It's just content." But he was wrong. What I built wasn't content. It was a life. It had weight, texture, grain. And like any good piece of wood, when you sand it down after the damage, the core is still solid underneath. Shane wanted an upgrade. He just never realized I was the one getting it.